Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome back to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking a modern phenomenon that is, quite frankly, completely reshaping personal finance for a massive demographic. We're talking about the true cost of frictionless spending. Today, we're exploring the deep financial impact of social commerce, specifically focusing on the youth. And honestly, it's fascinating, and maybe a little bit eye-opening when you actually break it all down. We're going to look at the exact mechanics of how social media transforms from just a place of entertainment into a highly efficient engine for spending. And we'll be revealing the staggering, real-world dollars attached to the whole shebang. Right off the bat, we have to ask, how much damage can a single tap actually do? I mean, we're all so conditioned to think of our phones as these tools for passive scrolling, right? You sit back, you swipe, you just consume content. But guys, that era is actively evolving. We are literally living in the reality of active spending now, where the distance between seeing something you like and actually buying it has been reduced to practically zero. All right, so Section 1, the platform and the demographic. Our source material today aims to figure out exactly what TikTok Shop addiction costs teens per year. And look, this isn't just some casual clickbaity headline. It's a structured equation with very specific variables that we're going to solve together today. Rather than just parsing through words, we're jumping straight into the underlying data to see exactly how this modern financial ecosystem operates and precisely how much money is silently draining from teenage bank accounts. You see, the absolute genius of this specific social commerce environment is that it completely blurs the line between consuming content and spending money. It creates what we call a totally frictionless environment. You aren't consciously opening a shopping app with the pure intent to buy something. You're opening an entertainment app to just chill out and relax. But because all that friction is gone, your virtual wallet is essentially sitting wide open the entire time you're scrolling. Which brings us to Section 2, defining the addiction. Let's get into it. Now, here's the crucial point. TikTok Shop addiction is defined as the compulsion to repeatedly make frictionless purchases directly through the platform's targeted social feed. I really want you to think about the specific words used here. Compulsion, repeatedly, frictionless. We're looking at a highly specific behavioral spending loop. The app is meticulously designed to remove literally every possible barrier to checkout, making the abstract concept of an addiction incredibly concrete. It is a cycle that feeds entirely on the ease of the transaction. Which naturally leads us to ask a pretty vital question. What happens when the algorithm knows exactly what you want to buy? I really want you to consider this powerful combination for a second. You've got these highly targeted, incredibly sophisticated algorithms that learn your micro-preferences in real time. Now pair that perfectly tuned machine directly with an impulsive teenage demographic. It's an environment fundamentally engineered for conversion. It basically bypasses traditional decision-making processes entirely. So let's move on to Section 3, building the equation. Let's walk step by step through the mechanics of this calculation. Step 1 is exposure to content. It almost always starts with a highly engaging, seemingly organic video tailored right to the user. Often showcasing cheap, trendy items like lip gloss, skincare, or maybe some small room decor. Then Step 2, the frictionless purchase. The buy button is integrated right into the viewing experience. There's no searching, no leaving the app, and the entire checkout process can literally be completed in under 10 seconds. And finally, Step 3, the cumulative annual effect. This is where a single fleeting moment of exposure turns into a long-term structural cost. It's the compounding nature of this process that gives the equation its real power. So we've got 3 distinct elements at play here. The platform, which is TikTok Shop, the demographic, teens, and the action, addiction. When you line these up side by side, you can clearly see how they compound together. The platform provides the necessary venue, the demographic provides the psychological vulnerability and impulsivity, and the addictive action is the engine that actually drives the financial cost. If you take literally any one of these columns away, the whole equation falls apart. Let's break down the underlying factors that actually have to be summed up to reach the final annual figure mentioned in our source text. First off, the frequency of impulse buys. Like, how often is the user actually tapping that button? Often it's 2 to 3 times a week. Second, the cost per item. This is strategically kept artificially low, usually sitting right in that $5 to $15 sweet spot, so the brain justifies the purchase as, oh, no big deal. Third is the algorithmic engagement rate, meaning how often the platform successfully hooks the user's attention. And finally, compounding over 365 days, because it's rarely about one massive purchase, right? It's the silent accumulation of countless microtransactions. All right, Section 4, the annual toll. Let's see how this adds up over time. Let's look at how this scales chronologically over a whole year. On day 1,
It's the first purchase. It feels novel, harmless, maybe even fun. Fast forward to month 6, and we're looking at habit forming. The friction of spending is completely gone at this point. Buying is now just an automatic, conditioned response to the algorithm's prompts. And by year 1, the total cost is calculated. That is when the invisible, daily spending suddenly materializes into a very real and honestly often very shocking financial toll.
And we really have to heavily emphasize the per-year aspect of this calculation. We are not talking about a weekend trip to the mall here or a one-off holiday shopping spree. We are talking about an environment where a frictionless spending ecosystem is right there in your pocket. It's fully accessible, heavily promoted, and psychologically triggered 365 days a year. The sheer, unrelenting volume of opportunities to spend is what makes this calculation so staggering. And that brings us to Section 5, the final calculation. So we return to the central focus of our source text, calculating exactly what TikTok Shop addiction costs teens per year. When you actually add up those frequent microtransactions we've explored, those seemingly harmless $10 purchases made a few times a week, the source reveals that this addiction costs the average affected teen upwards of $1,500 per year. Let that sink in. The calculation isn't just some static concept anymore. You now understand it as the sum total of a perfectly engineered, daily system of consumption designed to just extract value, tap by tap. Which leaves us with this final, memorable question to ponder today. Is the convenience really worth the ultimate cost? It's a question every digital consumer has to answer for themselves in this new era of social commerce. Think about the real-world impact of this digital equation. The friction is completely gone, the algorithms are smarter than ever, and the tally runs 365 days a year. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the systems right at your fingertips.